Cisco 49 is deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, D. Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time.
It's the 49er Faithful UK show. Week 2 is done. And while it didn't quite go as expected, it is still a 30-23 win against the Rams and another victory Monday. Results leave the Niners top of the division at 2-0. That sounds good. I'm Gareth Ellis. I think still generally quite happy. It's Lee Gowland.
Hey guys.
Paul Hope.
What's up, everybody?
And Naji Karar.
Hello, everyone.
So, I think we all enjoyed that one. Didn't quite go as we all expected, did it? We'll get onto the score predictions and our wild inaccuracies a little bit later. But lads, do you have your 3 talking points or 3 words about the game? Should we start with Paul? I know he did his homework.
Well, Gareth, we're sat here 2-0 in the division, thinking the sky is falling in after that first half performance. But Carl Shanahan said it better than I could. We've got a long way to go, and this offense is not even firing on all cylinders. So I have a feeling we're going to be talking about Brock Purdy. I've seen a lot of the haters come out of the woodwork, which surprises me, given how we've put 30 points up on the road again, even though it was a home game, but a road game. But I'm ready. I've done my homework. But my talking point, Gareth, is we've got a long way to go, and I'll explain that when we get into it.
Concise. I like it. Go on, Lee. You're raring to go.
Well, if you think that's concise, you're definitely going to like mine then. So I've purely gone with 3 words, and it's 3 words that sum up the entire game. Chalk and cheese. That is what I'm going for.
Fair enough. I have kind of 3 talking points. I want to talk defensive philosophy and play calling. Looking at you, Steve Wilkes. I want to talk Jack Moody, special teams in general, and our offense, unstoppable offense.
That's quite good. I think my alliterative one last week was quite popular, so I've gone for Demo and Debo delivered despite defensive dip, which is quite good. Can he sneak it? Yes, he can. And pass rush missing in action wasn't one I thought I would be picking at all this season, but there we are. Where should we start, lads? I think defensive philosophy. I think that was what stood out from the first half of the game, was the ease with which the Rams moved the ball. I think McVay, he's obviously tried this. He's tried to beat us many, many times over. So he's going through his game plans, but he came up with a game plan, I think, to find the holes in the defense. So Naji, this is on your list. Talk us through it and your opinion, perhaps, of Mr. Wilkes and his adjustments.
Yeah. I think we should start by saying kudos to the Rams. They did play really well, and they had a plan and they executed it really, really well. And Stafford is a very good quarterback. As we saw on Sunday, I think we were maybe a little too quick to dismiss all that in the hype after the Steelers game, but they played really well, and I think that's one of the reasons we struggle on defense. But if we look at our side, and solely our side, because that's what we do here, I thought because of the way they were playing, and the idea that they had was to get rid of the ball as fast as they could, and pick pick hole in our zone with that Hook and Akua running slants essentially all day. The fact that we didn't adjust quick enough and we let them do it is kind of concerning, because we really looked inept for about 2 quarters at doing anything on defense. We just kind of let them roll over, and we just kind of played that soft zone as if we were 25 points ahead. And it wasn't quite the case. So a bit of a head scratcher here. I don't know if it's still weeks. Steve Wilkes' philosophy, if that was the plan and he just wanted halftime to make sure that the new plan was as sound as possible. I don't know, but I think on Discord and I'm sure on Facebook everywhere, everybody was screaming for just do something else. Just have one play where we play man. Just send the house. Just do something else. Stop letting them catch the ball in front of you and just march downfield. It was a weird feeling. And I hope it doesn't give blueprint to other teams to do it. Now, it's not that easy to do. You need a very good quarterback to do that. But yeah, it's a bit concerning, and it does raise a bit of concern on the defensive play calling. Ultimately, it didn't matter. We won. But when we play other team like the Eagles, the Ravens, that have potentially more potent offense, it might be a problem. So wait and see on that front.
Any thoughts on that?
Do you not think, Najee, it's a bit of a mixture between the bend and break mentality that the players had last year under Ryans and Wilks? This is how he plays his scheme. He plays those corners soft. And like you said, first half, you just had to jump on 49ers Twitter or our individual group chats, and it was like, what's he doing? We need to make the adjustments. And you look at the stats in the first half, you've got to give Matthew Stafford his flowers. 14 of 18 passes for 143 yards. And I think what we all underestimated is Sean McVay is not a bad coach, and he learned from the best. He learned from Kyle Shanahan. And like you said, at half time, sat there at 17 apiece, we were texting in our group chat about him needing to make the adjustments. And he did. It's one thing we used to knock D'Amico Ryans for, can we make the adjustments? And that second half, bringing that extra person for putting that pressure on. I mean, we'll get to All-Pro Fred's absolute amazing sack on Stafford, but that was because that's what Wilks has spent all off-season putting in, installing. We've talked about it on this show. Wilks is going to bring the pressure. Hufanga was just at that edge all the time. Now, we're probably going to get a bit of hate for this next statement, Gareth, but I think Nick Bosa played well in the second half. Yes, he didn't show on the sack sheet, but given Aaron Donald didn't record one single stat, that's not a tackle, he didn't get a pressure. And Nick Bosa was $170 million man. But when you go back and watch the tape and you look at the box score, that second half, I think all of the defense stepped up. And I don't know whether, like you said, Najee, whether Shanahan went in at half time, just kicked the door in and said, right, I don't know what that is. But the second half, the defense played like, now, yes, we conceded 6 points, but 3 of those were like in the last second of the game. So given we gave up 17 points in the first half, the second half was very interesting, given our score prediction game, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But I'm not overly worried, Najee. I think Isaiah Oliver showed exactly why we're not coaching in the NFL. We spent all off-season saying he's looked terrible. Mr. Gowland wanted him cut from the squad, and he stepped up big time yesterday. I mean, that second half, you could argue that Oliver was there at every big play, and he deserved that pick for me. And it was great to see Lenore and Oliver obviously get the chance. There was a couple of injuries. I think Thomas went off early with injury, so he shifted them around. And for me, that needs to be a talking point as well. We're quick to talk about our offense, but I think Oliver deserves all his credit.
They scored MVP, Oliver, and Facebook MVP, I believe.
Was he? Wow. Well, it was certainly a good performance, and I think it was. We did have questions about who was going to line up where in the secondary, and I think it's tough on Ambry Thomas, but he didn't excel and then got injured, and I think we're going to see that going forward. Demo back on the perimeter and Isaiah Oliver in the slot. What did you make of his performance, Lee? Happy? I think you were a bit critical of him. I think we all were, to be fair. So.
Yeah. I mean, I said it in the thread last night. I thought he was a great signing. I thought he had a really good second half. In the first half, obviously, not many people in the defense kind of covered themselves in glory. I'm going to go a little step further than what Paul did. I actually thought Nick Bosa played well all game. I think the reason he didn't look as though he was playing well is because Stafford was just getting the ball out so damn quick. It completely neutralised Bosa. It's what we do with Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
And they've done that with Nick Bosa. They just got the ball out. And he was getting chipped all the time as well. And that really bugs us. So they've gone from holding him to chipping him all the time. They'll have the player run past them. So I think Bosa had a good game. I think Oliver in the second half was absolutely outstanding. He seemed to be there all the time, any big player, and you could see Oliver was involved in it somewhere along the lines. So that's pleasing because, I mean, as you've quite rightly said, I was quite critical of him in training camp. I thought he should have been cut because I thought it was absolutely dire. Paul mentioned just before the first game against the Steelers. I wonder if it's a case of he's just one of these guys that doesn't train well but plays better.
Yeah.
I think you'll have to get out of that habit because we know what Shanahan's like. But I can't complain about the way he played in the second half. And going back to Naji's point before about Discord, Facebook group, all saying, getting on Steve Wilkes' back. It's not a case of we didn't think he was going to make the adjustments in the second half, because that's expected for adjustments to be made at halftime. But I think we were getting opened up so easily in the first quarter, it kind of demanded a change straight away. He had to try and do something different, but he wasn't. And he just rode out the first half with the game plan that he had, rather than have any sort of contingency to kind of shake it up a bit just to slow them down. Because you know what it's like if you go in behind at the half. There's not that many games we've won where we've been behind at the half.
Yeah,
so that's why it's important to kind of shore up the defense as soon as possible. And I think that was what was getting people's backs up, that rather than, well, is he going to make any adjustments in the second half? Because I can guarantee you every single team makes adjustments to the second half.
Yeah, of course.
Even when they're winning, they make adjustments to the second half.
Yeah, of course.
Overall, I think the defense really summed up my 3 words with chalk and cheese. I think the first half was just completely different to the second half. I thought the offense, they didn't hit quite the heights they did against the Steelers.
Could have, though.
They could have, yeah, but they were reasonably efficient. So as a whole, I'm quite happy with those 3 words I chose.
I mean, yeah, you can tell me what you thought about the D-line, Gareth, because I know you love talking line, trenches, but there's not much else they could have done. And, if the quarterback takes a 5-step drop and gets rid of the ball within a second, there's no human being on the planet that can get there. Even Usain Bolt and touch can't get there. It's impossible. So it is what it is. Yeah, it's just you want to kind of see adjustment faster, but also, they were having long drives, so you're hoping that one of those third down is, you stop them, and it just didn't happen. Sometimes it's just the way football is, and it's a game of inches. We could have stopped them a couple of times. It didn't happen. You don't throw the book out because it doesn't work either. You just make sure patience is. We trust what we do, especially on defense. So I'm not too bothered about being patient and see what happens, because we know our defense got a big play in them. But it was a little too easy for my liking in the first and second quarter. I would have liked to see even just one play every so often, just something a little funky, a little weird and different that they don't expect, just to see a change of momentum. But
so I don't particularly think that Drake Jackson had a good game at all, even in the second half when the rest of the defense stepped up. At times, he just didn't look interested, which is quite surprising coming off the back of the performance he put in against the Steelers. At times, he looked as though he was getting well and truly out-muscled, trying to get around to Stafford. And other times, he just didn't look as though he was bothered. So I was a little bit disappointed in Drake Jackson.
Well, he's a young player, isn't he? And, when it gets frustrated because you literally can't do your job because the ball's gone before you even realize, he's going to have to learn how to make an impact despite not making an impact. He's young.
I mean, we didn't play too differently to we played against the Steelers, and I think that played into it as well, chaps. If you go back and watch the Steelers game, our defense didn't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. My friend Mike, who's a Rams fan, he texted me after the Steelers game and said, I hope you give Stafford as much time as you gave Kenny Pickett. And then at half time, he was texting me saying, we're going to murder you. However, the run game for the Rams was a concern. They threw the ball 55 times. They very rarely ran. And I think what I liked, saying what you said there, Najee, the second half, I think they did mix it up like you said. I thought they brought the pressure from different places. And we've got to give Stafford credit, Gareth. He's a great quarterback at the line, reading what the defenses are doing. And I think maybe the first half was a little bit cat and mouse. Like Lee said, chalk and cheese. We're getting the puns in here. Maybe we just wanted to see what the Rams were doing. And I know we've got to get your thoughts because the offense, there's so much we need to talk about. certain calls, certain plays. But you've been very quiet, Gareth, because it's hard to get a word in with us three. So come on, buddy,
No, good.
give us your thoughts.
That's the point. Yeah, I think the annoying thing about the defense was that the Rams just seemed to have Stafford had like 3 throws, and he kept going to those over and over and over again. And it wasn't like they were pulling us all over the place. They found a couple of things that worked against our defense and just did it over and over and over again. And it was that. Surely there must be something you can do to change this. Surely there must be some alignment or an assignment you can give a player that's going to disrupt this, because they had the ball for too long. I think obviously that was part of McVay's game plan. Neutralize the pass rush with the quick passes, get 7-8 yards a pass, and keep the ball, keep the Niners offense off the field. And it executed well for the first half. So I do think there's plaudits there for Steve Wilkes, because he did change it in the second half. But I think you're rightly, it's why didn't you change it? Why didn't you at least try something different? It seemed to be we were just playing our game and the Rams were playing theirs, and they were having their way with us, and we seemed almost content with that. But yeah, a big change I think in the second half. Obviously keeping them to 6 points, and 3 of those were garbage time. Just so that McVay ruined my score prediction. But if he wants to be that petty, if I've got under his skin that much, then I'm going to call that a win. But yeah, I think the pass rush wasn't. It's easy to be critical on them, but one thing that struck me is that the Rams O-line is big. There's some big guys there. Just looking at them milling about after the play, you saw the size of some of these guys, making Drake Jackson look like an ordinary sized human being. So they've built themselves a big old line, and I think they decided we ain't going to even bother trying to run this. We'll sit back in the pocket and do those short screen passes and the dump off passes to the running backs, and we'll get some yards that way. Defensive discipline, I think, was also a problem. Obviously, the Rams' first touchdown, we got to stop. We're going to leave them to a field goal and another silly, unnecessary roughness penalty, which converts their third downs for them. That is definitely something I think we need to cut out. But enough of the defense. Offense, Paul, what did you make then? Where do you want to start? Purdy. I think you talked about Purdy getting some criticism. Yeah, let's start with that, because I don't understand it.
I mean, to be fair, that first drive, I'm sure I echo every 49ers fan. You sat down, that first drive was perfect. And I thought, here we go, it's going to be Purdy good. And then after that, it was just a bit strange. I mean, it didn't help that we had the Raiders playing at the same time. There was a lot of comparisons about Jimmy. What I will say for the haters out there, Brock didn't turn the ball over. So if this is a bad performance for Brock Purdy,
it is.
I will take this bad performance from Brock Purdy. 30 points on the offense. Me and Nadja were agreeing there. We could have put 50 points up on the Rams if he had a couple of those overthrows. He protected the ball well. And I think, again, give the Rams some credit. Nothing to play for. We all thought we'd roll into our holiday home and we'd steamroll them. Slightly confused. Mitchell didn't get any kind of snaps, but I will share with you, when CMC went on that massive run and bumped into Weatherspoon and exchanged pleasantries, I may have uttered something along the line, I love that man. I want that jersey next. And I think Tracy shouted something from the kitchen, but I told her to be quiet, Gareth, because the football was on. But for me, I don't know why people are getting worried. Week 2. This time last year, we were on the back of losing to the Broncos with Jimmy stepping out the back of the end zone. We were lucky if we put 20 points up in a game. Yet we're sat here now, 30 points, a quiet offensive game. And this team, Gareth, is primed to get better and better. Ayuk was carrying an injury, so that let other people step up, which I took some credit because we said that on the pod. For those people listening, we said Debo was probably going to have a big game this week. So if you go back, it's on there. But I don't know why people feel the need to knock the 49ers. I know why non-49ers fans do it, but for me,
jealousy.
The emotional roller coaster was back for about 20 minutes. But I do like, we had our group chat. I felt quite calm. Us three were talking, and I wasn't worried, Gareth. What did you make of Brock's performance? Because it was high standards, but I will say I'm all aboard the Brock Express, and I am not getting off that anytime soon.
You better be on it.
Absolutely, it was clean and efficient. Generally mistake free. I think there was the fumbled snap, but I'm not sure whose fault that was. But he got on it. One thing we did agree on, I think that Jimmy was good, was quarterback sneak, and Brock's come in and showed that he's even better at the QB sneak than Jimmy was, because he was getting about 3 yards and rumbled straight into the end zone. That was good to see. And I think I don't know what people are making a lot about the overthrows. I think it's just because they were players, quarterbacks miss passes. He still completed, I think it's 68% of his throws.
Which is very good.
I watched the game in 40. The one for Debo is an overthrow. I think the one on Ayuk gets turned round. He's turned round to look for the ball, and then the ball's going over his other shoulder. So he looks. He again, it's overthrown, but you can see why Purdy perhaps expected him to be 2 or 3 yards further down the field. And I think the one over the middle to Jennings gets a hand on it, and again, I think it's high. You can argue it's overthrown. I think it just caught Jennings at the wrong point because he doesn't jump for it. And suddenly, the ball's there and he's not quite got his foot under him to actually get up and get it. And he just manages to just about get a finger on it. So it's only just overthrown. And one thing I will say, it's much, much better to overthrow than underthrow. Because if you underthrow, it's an interception. If you overthrow, you're putting it only where your receiver is going to get it. And that was the same on all those three. If there was only one person who could get it, it was our player. It wasn't a dangerous pass. So I think it's 3 incompletions. Yes, Purdy's come out and said they're on him and he needs to do better. But I think a lot of people are desperate to try and find some fault in his game because there isn't one. Or we haven't really seen one. And I think people have jumped on that perhaps a little bit too hard because they're desperate to see that he's merely human. What do you think, Lee?
I don't know if you... sorry, Lee. I don't know if you heard on the broadcast, they were talking a lot about Brock Purdy's thighs. I just wanted to share this story. I shared it with Connor Ryan at Flag Football. So I read an article the weekend, Nadji. Apparently when he was in college, he was carrying a bit of extra weight because he was doing too much of the squat machines. And when they were looking at his mechanics, he was thrown on his tiptoes. So when we drafted him, they worked on lowering his weight a little bit, working on his throwing mechanics, and he put a bit more zip on the ball. And I didn't realise that this article had only just come out, and that's what they were talking about on the broadcast. And all I else was going to say, Gareth, is how interesting is it that Kyle Shanahan has his quarterback and how much trust he has in him. Going for it on that 4th down, letting Brock still air it out. Because let's face it, Jimmy wouldn't have been allowed to do it after the first one. And I just think it just shows you that Brock is here to stay. And all the haters, you just need to, if you want to go follow Jimmy, the Raiders are just over there.
And that's the QB sneak at the end of the first half was set up. He put a lovely ball to the back of the end zone for Debo, which got the defensive pass interference call. Without that defensive pass interference, I think Debo's possibly snagging that in. And that was a lovely throw. But we're not talking about that one because it's another incomplete pass, but it's got the penalty.
Well, it's penalty, isn't it? So, yeah.
So what I would say about the overthrows is 2 of them were overthrown by a country mile. What wasn't even close. And I think that's what got people's backs up. The Jennings one was close, and Jennings has even turned around and said he wasn't running full beans. He's come out and said, we haven't actually practiced that type of throw in practice. And I think it's because they generally don't do it. And you can look back to Jimmy and the trust that Kyle didn't have in Jimmy, which is probably why they never ever practiced it. But I think now that Brock's there, they're going to have to do it. And even though he had those 3 and he missed all 3 of those, I'm over the moon he took the shot anyway.
Yeah,
because it's going to open up the defense. It's going to spread the field, and that's what I've been saying this for ages now. You have to have 2 long shots at least a game, just to keep them honest, just to keep it spread, make it easier on the intermediate route. And the intermediate throws is what he's absolutely fantastic at.
Hey.
There's your one.
Get that marked on the sheet.
I will.
So that's what his bread and butter is. He's got I think it's 145 rating on intermediate throws. He's unbelievable at that distance. And this is the type of thing that's going to open it up. Because if he's purely doing those throws, they're just going to close the field and it's going to make it harder for him.
And for
I think-
CMC, yeah. It's
I think he had a couple of throws which I would class as
behind.
woeful. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and he kind of got he got helped out by his receivers a little bit.
yeah.
But again, this is a guy who's only playing in the 7th regular season game.
I was going to say we've been spoilt by his performance so far. He's
Exactly.
literally
He set the
7
bar
games in.
so high. Yeah. So he's kind of made a rod for his own back by being so good to start off with. But I didn't really see anything that I'm concerned about with Brock Purdy. And I never have at the moment. I haven't seen it. So I'm quite happy to watch him go through these little teething problems, we'll call them. Obviously, he didn't turn the ball over, which was an absolute bonus. Not like some of our old quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm happy. I was happy with it. I don't think we can slate him for those 3 overthrows. Especially when some of the throws he did make into a tight window were absolutely on the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that comes down to his decision making and his accuracy at that level. So no, I was over the moon.
Big game from Debo. I think we predicted it. I didn't quite get my 250-yard TDs, but I thought he might have got a second one. But he did get over 100 yards combined.
99, didn't he?
But yeah, good
combined.
to see.
Yeah.
Good to see that double punch. If perhaps with the injury, if he has a quiet game, if people try and shut him down, suddenly there's Debo. So good to see Debo, I think, hungry and wanting the ball.
Yeah. I mean, our offense was unstoppable on Sunday. This is what I really wasn't worried about our defense playing not optimally, because it looked easy on every drive, apart from towards the end where we're just trying to churn the clock and get the field goal range. They had no answer. Every play was at least 8 or 9 yards, and we were just marching downfield and scoring pretty much every time. So when that happens in a game, when one team feels easy and it's just progressing downfield, smoothly, and the other one is all very stop and start, usually the one that's smooth is going to win the game, unless something crazy happens. But yeah, the amount of weapons we have and the people we have and the way the team is built and how we work and what can be called at any time is so hard for a defense if they don't have any kind of momentum. And if Brock doesn't make any mistakes, which he's very good at not doing, I'm over the moon with this, and it's so enjoyable to watch. And when Jimmy was in, we all waiting for something bad to happen. I've said this last year. Now that Brock is in, we're just waiting for something good to happen, something special, with whether he hands it to CMC and it's 70 yards or whatever, or he just tries to throw a bomb for Debo and he's a couple of yards off. But if Debo catches that, it's we're all off our sofa and we're very happy about it. So yeah, it's only week 2. We're gonna get better, and we still haven't seen any of Josh Kittle in action as an offensive weapon, or Elijah Mitchell, or any of the other guys. Jawan Jennings really hasn't been featured yet. So I think it's going to be. It was fun on Sunday, and it's going to keep getting more fun every week.
I think Jennings had a couple of good catches, and we haven't even talked about McCaffrey. I think hopefully that's what Paul was about to say. I can tee you up.
I was going to say, Def Taxes, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey having an absolute game against the Rams. I mean, he did it when he was a Panther, and all I was going to say, Gareth, was in that first half, I thought he was going to break records, because every time he got the ball in that first half, I mean, the 51-yard run when he ended with Weatherspoon just hitting the dirt. We've said for years, give Kyle Shanahan a running back like that, and it just opens up the offense. And we mentioned George Kittle. Just want to give a cheeky shout out. He broke a record at the weekend, didn't he?
He did,
400.
Pretty impressive one.
I can't remember I did
have
it written down.
Yeah, 400 receptions in 84
fastest
games.
To 400 receptions.
Beat Jerry Rice by 1.
Yeah. One given to Jerry Rice and Roger Craig.
And given that we are the home of Club 85, we had to give a nod there. And like you said, Natty, that's why I'm excited. This offense hasn't even started yet. And people have to remember the NFL, week 2, this time last year, I'll repeat myself, we were struggling. we're coming in now. We scored 60 points in 2 games. And like you said, Gareth, I kind of forgot about Jennings because he was a non-factor last week. And then seeing him come into the game, the only thing I didn't like was the block that Jennings did. But I suppose in the heat of the moment and
stupid mistake.
And like you said, penalty.
It's that penalty.
We said this.
What was that? A crackback block that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That was a pity, wasn't it?
It's dangerous. You've never been on the end of one of those. I can tell you, it's no fun. Because I have, and it's really no fun at all.
You wanted to mention Jake Moody, I think, Nadji, rightly so.
I did. Please, I mean, I don't really want to say too much, but 53-yarder, nailed it down the middle. 57. Excuse me, Jake. No, that's what we want to see. Clean up on the kickoff. I don't care if he kicks off out of bounds every now and then, and he gives us 57 yards on a regular. Don't care at all. But yeah, that's what we wanted to see. That's why he got drafted this high. The worry of the offseason is starting to kind of go away. I think maybe 1 or 2 more like this, and I'll be settled. And even if he misses one, because it will happen. It won't be the end of the world. But yeah, no, amazing display by Jake Moody. However, the rest of the special team has a lot to answer for, a lot of penalties, and really not that great. We need to tighten that. I wish we had a better special team unit, just to sometimes, just a punt return for 70 yards helps you win a game. It would be nice to see every now and then. We just haven't been good at it for so long. But yeah, not the end of the world, but it would be nice if we could do that too.
Isn't it nice we've got a kicker though? When you're at that 55-yard, you can kick. Because that was a knock on Robbie Gareth, that we couldn't kick field goals from there. 57 yards, and I know he's a young lad. He made it look easy. Like you said, Nancy, it's an extra facet to this offense. And I don't want us to kick field goals. I mean, the second half, I was getting lost, Lee, because sometimes you wanted us to score a field goal. Sometimes you didn't want us to score a field goal. And for those people watching on YouTube, we've got the spreadsheet up. So I'm sure everybody's keen to know the update after Sunday's performance.
I know someone's very keen to be talking about score predictions. But we do have the small matter of player watch before then. How's it going, Lee?
Okay, so obviously Sammy Womack's now on IR, so I've had to choose somebody else. So I thought I'd make it interesting for myself and everybody, and I'm going with Colton McKivitz.
Oh, that's a good shout. I like it.
So I actually thought he had a decent game yesterday compared to the Steelers game. I was quite surprised. He kind of held up quite well against the pass rush. Poor Spencer Burford just inside didn't hold up quite as well. But Colton McKivitz did a lot better than what he did last week. And I think if he continues to grow like that, I think he will grow into the role. And hopefully, let's say by midway through the season, he might be a solid right tackle.
Fingers crossed.
Nice. Fingers crossed indeed.
Ronnie Bell, still pretty absent from the stat sheet.
Yeah, it's nice to see him on the field. I think the wide receiver unit did well yesterday in their assignments of blocks and running the route. I did see number 10 flash on the screen a couple of times. And as much as it was bittersweet when Ayuk went out, because none of us want to see Ayuk get injured, I wondered if that would be where we'd see our chance, especially when Brock taken a deep ball. But he hasn't made an impact yet. Obviously, the rookie on the other side for the Rams broke all the records and he seemed to get the ball. But maybe Ronnie Bell could be used in that role moving forward. But he's on the field, Gareth, which I don't think any of us thought he would see as much playing time as what he did. But I've nothing to report at this moment, buddy. No touchdown to talk about and no mistakes, which is just as important.
But I think he's getting the snaps, and I think I saw from the grades he's done fairly well at some pass blocking. Blocking. And we know that Shanahan wants to see you earn your targets by putting in your shift in that side of the game. So hopefully, I'm hopeful this game is a bit of a stepping stone for Bell He's gone out there. He's proven that he can do that side of the job, and he's not afraid to stick his face into a block when it's needed. And hopefully that might earn him some targets next week or later in the week. Nadji, your player. You have to remind me who it was.
Jordan Mason. No snaps.
Yes.
No, nothing. It's an interesting point of talking, though. The fact that neither him or Elijah Mitchell saw the field at all on Sunday, despite us sort of struggling towards the end of the fourth quarter, or clearly running the ball, and CMC was maybe a bit tired at that point. I don't know, but it was stacking the box. It would have been nice to see Jordan Mason punch at it, and try and get those first down and to kick the field goal. But yeah, it didn't happen. I'm going to give him one more game, and then I'll switch to somebody else if that's the tendency we're going to. I'm not seeing anyone but CMC. I will have to pick somebody else to watch, but I'll keep an eye on those guys anyway.
I'm pleased with Diarmuid Lenoir's performance. An interception that basically steals the game away. Few good tackles. I think soft in coverage against Puka Nacua, but I think that's what he's being asked to do. Once again, the impressive thing is you don't get past him. He's behind you. You can catch the ball in front of him, but you just don't get past him, or at least you're not going to get far. So, very pleased with his performance. Shall we
Did
go
you
on
have one last year? Did you have a pick last year against the Rams? Was it him that sealed the game too?
Possibly. He certainly had two in the postseason.
Right.
Maybe he did. I'd have to look back. Anyway, Lee is desperate to get onto score predictions.
Yes.
I wonder why.
By the way, that 1.5 is not 1.5. It's definitely 2.
Oh, it's definitely a 1.5. Everybody on Facebook said I did not say the word.
You did say the word.
I did.
Moral victory, Nadji.
The word that I'm not supposed to say. The word that's on the screen there, right next to 1.5.
The one you said today.
It's
what about the
too
people who
small.
listen?
I have to read it.
I tell you what. I'm throwing the challenge flag here. I'm throwing the challenge flag.
You don't have to put the replay on YouTube. Yeah, fair enough.
The challenge flag is down. Everybody who listened to it turned around and said, you stopped yourself in time. I think that should be a 0.5 point from last time. Fair. Not that I'm competitive.
Clearly not.
Go on then. Score predictions. Safe to say, I don't think any of us got close.
It
Paul
wasn't
did pretty
too bad.
well.
Yeah, we all scored points, although, I'm saying we all scored points. We scored points
just for the winner.
We all said it was a win.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul got close with our score.
Yeah,
31-10.
Really close. Yeah. So that puts Paul out in the lead on his lonesome there.
Yeah, 14, 12, 10, 5. Yeah, it's actually tight. It's nice. Week 2 and it's already tight. I like it.
Yeah.
I've broken my duck, so I'm off the bottom.
Yeah, and you got unlucky. They were so close to be at 17, I think, and 41 was a bit over the moon.
Could have scored 50 with the other throws, but I will say, Gareth, despite being top of the leaderboard, I will still play with my heart and not my head. And Nadji, Lee can have that 0.5. We've got the moral victory. Me and you know what happened, buddy.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's shaping up nicely, isn't it, after week 2?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
I think we've covered everything, unless any final words on the Rams game, or we'll wrap this up.
Same old sorry ass Rams.
Yeah.
Well,
the stadium looked very red.
I was about to say, we had people there. So Lee has handed over the Instagram account to me, Gareth, and I got some flag pictures from Andy and Audrey Smith, David Bettridge, Lawrence Lofts, and there was another member there that we didn't know, but when Andy and Audrey were walking through the tailgate and they spotted the patch on his jersey. Yeah. So the 49er Faithful UK were 2-2 for flag
Matthew
flying
Smith
at the games. That's it, Matthew, yep. And obviously with El Presidente being in the vicinity on their Thursday night, we're going to have 3 out of 3. So it was great to just give them a shout out, Gareth, that it's always great to see the 49er Faithful UK representing, and keep those flag photos coming in, people.
Definitely.
We need to fill the content on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, it's great to see those coming in on game day. Keep us going on the wait through Sunday. Fantastic. Thank you, lads. And thank you to everyone who listens and watches the show. You can do all that liking and subscribing stuff if you want. We will be back very, very soon with the Giants preview show. Until then, enjoy Victory Week and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Go Niners.
Bang, bang, Nana gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, D. Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time. John Taylor, Jerry Rice down.